Win some and you lose some. Luckily we've won more than we've lost, but this hurts.
Sure it hurts. Today on The Real Story, Connecticut takes a big hit with word that General Electric is moving its headquarters to Boston. Was it high taxes or something else that was the major catalyst for this decision? And what will the impact be? We'll ask the leader of the state's largest business lobby and a lawmaker who represents the host community, Fairfield.
New moves designed to further lower the state's crime rate, dedicating certain facilities for inmates 18 to 25 years old and converting some prison guards to become parole officers. What's behind these ideas? We're going to ask Mike Lawler, the governor's point person on criminal justice policy.
Also getting our attention, the fight against stereotypes and bigotry targeting Muslims amid the fear spread by terrorism. We'll hear from one Connecticut man who's trying to change attitudes, a man who says hate speech and bullying are making it tougher for children to grow up Muslim in America. All today on The Real Story. Hi there, you're watching The Real Story. I'm Al Tersey alongside Jen Bernstein.
Thank you, Al, and hello to everyone at home. Well, there's no getting around it. General Electric's decision to leave Connecticut is a huge loss, a loss of hundreds of jobs at GE headquarters in Fairfield, plus more at small businesses that do work for GE.
Now, why Boston? As a simple matter, the GE company says that it's a leader in digital transformation of industry, and it wanted to be in a place with the kinds of advantages that Boston offers. GE Chairman and CEO Jeff Immelt said Boston was selected after a careful evaluation of the business ecosystem, talent, long-term costs, quality of life for employees, connections with the world, and proximity to other important company assets.
All right, we're going to talk about it. Joining us right now is Joe Brennan, President and CEO of the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. And we also have Republican State Representative Laura Devlin, who represents Fairfield. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so Representative Devlin, we want to start with you.
Sure.
How bad are we expecting the impact to be?
You know, this is a devastating decision and for GE to move out of Fairfield. And what the ultimate impact will be, we really have to kind of wait and see. But let me put it in some perspective. They're the largest taxpayer in our local community within Fairfield, contributing nearly $2 million to our tax rolls. They also employ 800 people within the GE headquarters in Fairfield. And there are certainly Fairfield residents, but this also impacts all of the surrounding communities, and everybody is, up and quite alarmed by the decision. Besides that, we've got to consider the supply chain. GE spends $14 billion within the state of Connecticut on goods and services that support their businesses, and on top of that, they are incredibly generous citizens locally. They've done a tremendous amount for our local university. They have also contributed time, employee time, and money to countless organizations. And within our own community, I was just at a meeting last weekend at our local museum, and I was in the room dedicated and donated by GE. There's just numerous touch points. When people move, it'll impact the real estate market. Hopefully that will happen in a phased approach, so it won't have a big impact. But those are all of the different pieces. It's a huge impact on our community. It's a huge impact on our state.
I want to ask Mr. Brennan, there was a lot of talk, and we've talked about it here with you, the impact of the tax increases, especially on business, corporate taxes. And yet, here we hear as their reason the assets that are in Boston, the lifestyle, the access to research facilities at the universities and that sort of thing, anything that contributes to the growth of their high-tech image that they're transitioning to now, away from finance into high-tech. So a lot of people would conclude that was really the real big reason why they're doing this, and that anything we did with taxes wasn't going to make any difference.
Well, I think what really happened, Al, is that taxes were the catalyst to GE starting the conversation. I've worked with the tax people at GE for close to 30 years now, and there's been a lot of ups and downs during that period. A lot of proposals come on the table that really would be very, very problematic for them. They've made investments in Connecticut. They made some business decisions. And then last year during the legislative session, all of a sudden, essentially, the rug was pulled out from under them. And those decisions they made under the current law, all of a sudden, were not going to work out for them. They were not looking for anything. They weren't looking for any handouts. They weren't looking for any special deals. They were just looking to continue to operate under the same laws that existed when they made those decisions. So that is really what I think was the catalyst for Mr. Immelt and others to get together and say, let's form a committee, let's look at other locations, because they were dissatisfied with the climate here in Connecticut. Once you start looking at moving a headquarters for a multinational corporation like that, then obviously you're going to look at a lot of factors. It's not going to be just taxes. It's going to be access to quality workforce. It's going to be infrastructure, all the things that they mentioned in their release. So I think people like a simple answer to thing, and I don't think there is a simple answer here, but I definitely believe taxes was the catalyst and the thing that had upset them. Because as I said during the session last year, it was just a tipping point. It wasn't just one thing that happened, one unitary reporting passed, and then they were going to decide to leave. It was a tipping point for some frustration for quite a few years.
Now the finger pointing happens in the legislature. We already got a few press releases from the Democrats and the Republicans, both kind of going at it. How do you describe, from someone who is in Fairfield, what needs to happen next in the community and then also on the legislative level?
So there's some good steps being taken in the community in terms of focus on economic development and lots of discussions and meetings at a local and at a state level. From a legislative standpoint, this was a preventable loss, and this fits squarely on the shoulders of Democrats in the legislature and in the governor's office. I met with GE executives, their CFO, in September with Republican leadership, and they told us then at that point they did not want a special deal. They're not looking for a deal. What they want, and what everybody in our state wants, is an end to retroactive surprise tax increases and sustainable, predictable business policy. And we're going to have a real problem if we continue down this path. It was Bristol-Myers Squibb earlier, it's GE now, other companies that have left, others that are threatening. We're trying to build a really serious biotech industry. Well, that requires serious long-term planning, long-term investments, and that's really critical. But the policies that are being forced on our state residents and businesses by the Democrats are going to continue to have a huge impact on the ability of our state to survive.
Another item that was mentioned is the pension situation in Connecticut and how Connecticut has been not handling the pension situation very well.
Yeah, there's no question, and it really goes back to what Representative Devlin just said about predictability. You can have any tax policy in the world, but you're not going to be able to rely on that if your budget deficits are recurring, as we've seen, and you have such large unfunded liabilities like we have for pensions and retiree health care. Those things combined, I think, was a big reason why GE made the decision that they made, because when I talked to them, they used another word that the representative just used, predictability, or the retroactivity also. Those are the things that really were kind of stuck in their craw, that how are we going to go forward if we can't have any kind of certainty whatsoever that the investments we make are going to pay off, because we have these large unfunded liabilities and other deficits in front of us. So that's a big issue. And it's not, as I try to point out, there's a lot of companies that are operating under the same circumstances under which GE made these decisions. That's why we have to get our fiscal house in order. We've just had the two largest tax increases in state history in the last 5 years, but we're still projecting sizable deficits over the next several years. So unless we can resolve that, at the same time trying to resolve our long-term unfunded liabilities, my fear is that other companies, they're not expecting big decisions like we heard from GE, but little by little they shift some of their operations or some of their people out of state.
It affects the attitude of the business community.
Yeah, there's no question, and as we keep saying, I'm sorry, but just one other thing, Connecticut has so many assets. We can be as good or better than Massachusetts. I have no doubt about that. We have so many great assets here.
It's been pointed out that Massachusetts taxes are they any better than Connecticut's?
Well, it all depends on how you're structured, what kind of industry you're in, but we've just got so many great assets here. If we can just get our act together a little bit better, then I think we can rival anywhere in the country.
All right.